Remember the whole Tenet media scandal where it was alleged that the Russian government was surreptitiously funding certain right-wing influencers? You guys remember the big hubbub about Tenet Media, Rebel Media, Lauren Chan, their connections to Tim Pool, and many different right-wing like influencers, how it was a Russian propaganda campaign, or the Russians were somehow surreptitiously giving money to these influencers. Remember the big, like the libs will still try to use this as an insult against Tim Pool. Russian this, Russian that. They're ridiculous, usual Russian crap. Well, come to find out, it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Lauren Chen has broken her silence relating to the Tenet Media story from last year, where the DOJ claimed that Tenet Media was a front for Russian influence operations and that people such as Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin were paid to spread Russian propaganda. It's fake news. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. And now, with a direct statement from Lauren Chen, we have more evidence that it's a lie. And there's a lot to talk about in this regard. But the update, Lauren Chen's statement, maybe not the biggest news in the world, but something I certainly want to talk about because I've said this already and I've said it several times. And these liberal liars, these evil Democrats, don't care about what's true. And here was the game. I stated this. We were working with the FBI. Okay? We were contacted by the FBI. I had two legal teams, and I said, get them whatever they need. Okay, we want the truth on what really happened here. And then just, for no reason in December, they said, nah, we're not interested. Thank you and have a nice day. And I was informed by my legal team that the case was over, literally within like a month or two of it starting. And I said, you got to be kidding me. This was a scam the whole time. They lied. They made it up because they wanted to smear, anti-establishment voices, people who had been supporting Trump right before the election. So October surprise, Russian influence, and then as soon as the election's over, it's actually not true and we're not interested anymore.
So yeah, you heard that right. The Biden administration's Department of Justice besmirched, defamed an American company, a North American company, although it's Canadian, but it has American values. So we can call it an American company, was horribly dragged through the mud, was pilloried across the entire media landscape as Russian bots and traitors and shills for the Russian government. And this all happened because corrupt, leftist, globalist officials who were probably controlling Joe Biden wanted to try to discredit the right-wing narrative that was helping Trump and the Republicans in their ascendancy to power. This is the very definition of government and corporate collusion. Just listen to the story from Lauren Chen herself. It is one of the most disgusting examples of the abuse of power that I've ever seen. This is a giant scandal in of itself. Statement from Lauren Chan. This past year has brought many trials I never imagined possible. There's so much I have to say, but for now, I'll do my best to answer a question I know many of you have been wondering. What happened? On September 4th, 2024, 2 months before the general election, my husband, 2-year-old, and I were awakened early in the morning by 30 armed FBI agents about to break down our door. At the time, I was entering my 4th month of pregnancy. The FBI spent the next 4 hours searching our house and interrogating us about our company, Tenet, which licensed mostly right-leaning conservative content. They took all of our electronics and seized our assets. This included our life savings and revenue that had nothing to do with Tenet, such as payments from contracts with The Blaze and TPUSA. That same day, then Attorney General Merrick Garland published a press release which essentially labeled Tenet a Russian propaganda operation intent on subverting American elections. The Department of Justice also unsealed an indictment on 2 Russian individuals that worked in conjunction with our company, but were not in the U.S. custody or even in the country. This lengthy indictment of these individuals was largely focused on Tenet, though most of the information provided was false, inaccurate, or out of context. There were also claims made concerning issues outside of our knowledge, and we regard those allegations with extreme skepticism. Garlic painted Tenet is a covert Russian propaganda mouthpiece, and our conservative-leaning content as unwitting propagandists. The implication was that the Russian government was astroturfing support for President Donald Trump in the upcoming election, and that his conservative and right-wing supporters online and independent media were merely behind him because they were paid to be. This notion was categorically untrue. To be clear, my own commentary has never been shaped by outside parties, despite working with several different companies during my time on social media. Furthermore, as a company, Tenet offered total editorial freedom to our creators. We never forced or advised our creators to push certain agendas, nor were we ever told to do so by any third party. In fact, we often did not see the content our creators published directly to our platform until it went live. We encouraged these creators to do what they do best, speak their minds boldly. To suggest that their earnest opinions are tantamount to Russian propaganda is not only dishonest, but a besmearing of views commonly shared by huge swath of Americans. In any case, due to the political nature of Garland's press release, our story quickly made international headlines, and we were falsely labeled spies, propagandists, and even traitors. We wanted to set the record straight, but it immediately became apparent that any attempts to challenge the Biden DOJ resulted in threats of arrest, charges, and potentially prison. And so, out of fear of being separated from our children and under the advice of counsel, we chose to remain silent until we could be sure that speaking out would not result in further judicial or extrajudicial punishment. Though there were never any criminal charges, much less convictions, due to this widely publicized investigation, all of our professional contracts were promptly dropped. We were deplatformed from YouTube, TikTok, Discord, and Google. We, and even some of our family members, were debanked by several financial institutions. We were forced to move due to death threats. Our work-based immigration visa, which was torpedoed by some actions against our company, was not renewed. The Canadian government also seemed to have opened their own investigation into us following the highly publicized American case, and of course, we quickly amassed legal fees well into the six figures. In March of this year, due to high blood pressure caused by chronic stress, I was induced and delivered our daughter. Despite the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy, she is a happy and healthy baby and has been a light in our lives during these difficulties. Thanks be to God. In April, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York informed our lawyer that the investigation into us and our company had finally been closed. This news provided us with some relief, but it soon became clear that although we weren't criminals, the SDNY had no interest in restoring us to where we were before the investigation began, though they could easily do so. There would be no similar press release absolving us of the very public and very serious allegations that had been made against us. There would be no help clearing our names with the Canadian government. They would not restore our visa status, and predictably, despite the lack of charges or conviction, our financial assets, all of our savings, would not be returned. We have lived humbly this past year, both due to financial woes and public vilification. We have had very little certainty about what our future as a family will look like because my American visa was contingent upon our company. We had no choice but to leave our home and children's place of birth. We are doing everything in our power to get a new visa and return home. Sadly, we also lost some people who we believed were our friends. But more notably, we were blessed to have quite a number of our colleagues reach out with words of support. Some even published videos or posted in our defense. I am humbled to say that there are too many to thank individually. We have also received many kind messages from our audience during this time, and I cannot thank you all enough. Your messages of support, which now have continued to come through. I've been gone from public life for a year now. Never fail to bring tears to my eyes. No criminal charges were actually ever brought against myself, my husband, or our company. The legal investigation has been quietly closed. Despite this, the road ahead of us is fraught with difficulty and uncertainty. I wish this ordeal was over, but our struggles continue as we fight to correct the many ways our lives were upended. To that end, as some of you have kindly suggested and offered, we are now seeking help to cover our still growing legal fees in our effort to return home. Any support is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to getting back to content creation and our lives soon. Thank you. This is reminiscent of Soviet-like tactics. This is reminiscent of a communist disinformation machine. This wasn't America, guys. This is what they wanted to turn America into.